It was a single mispressed button on a Penthouse intercom. A $38 pizza delivery to the wrong door. For the single father holding that box, it was just another mistake in a long line of them. For the lonely tech heiress who answered, it was the first human voice she'd heard in days. Neither of them knew it yet, but that wrong turn was about to rewrite both of their futures forever. On one side was Leo, a widowed father working double shifts just to keep the lights on. On the other was Ilara Vance, the reclusive heir to a Silicon Valley empire, whose net worth was measured in billions but whose human connections had flatlined. This is the story of what happens when desperation meets isolation by pure accident, and whether a single moment of kindness can actually bridge a gap that money alone created. To understand the collision, you first have to understand the trajectories. For Leo, every day was a calculation in survival, a numbers game where the math was constantly against him. After his wife Sarah's long battle with cancer, he was left with two things: his 7-year-old daughter Chloe, and a mountain of medical debt that made six figures feel small. His day job as a mechanic at a Queens garage paid the rent on their cramped apartment, but it didn't touch the debt. So from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., 4 nights a week, he delivered pizzas for Giovanni's. The red and black uniform felt like a costume for a life he never auditioned for. The real calculation was Chloe. Her asthma, a cruel inheritance of the city's poor air, meant regular specialist visits and expensive inhalers. Insurance covered a fraction. Leo's checklist was brutal: keep the electricity on, keep Chloe breathing, keep the collection calls at bay. Every extra dollar from a tip was a tiny shield. He was a man running on a financial treadmill that kept speeding up, and the exhaustion was a permanent resident in his bones. Meanwhile, 54 floors above the city's chaos, in the penthouse of Vance Tower, Ilara Vance existed in a world of silent, staggering opulence. At 28, she was the sole heir to Vance Innovations, a Silicon Valley titan built by her father, Arthur Vance, before his death 5 years prior. The company's valuation hovered near $80 billion. Ilara's personal net worth was estimated at $4.2 billion. But the empire was a gilded cage. Ilara had been groomed not just to inherit, but to innovate. She was the genius behind Aura, the smart home system that learned your life. But its controversial data collection protocols had sparked a privacy firestorm 2 years prior. The launch was a commercial success but a personal crater. The online vitriol, the congressional inquiries, the betrayal she felt from a public that used her product while vilifying her name, it broke something in her. She retreated. Board meetings were held via hologram from her penthouse. She communicated through a small army of assistants and lawyers. Her human interactions were reduced to transactions. The sprawling 5,000-square-foot penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and bespoke AI that adjusted everything from lighting to mood, was the most advanced prison ever built. Her father's final, relentless wish was for her to secure the family legacy, to have an heir. It was a pressure that turned her own life into another business problem she couldn't solve. The night it happened was a Tuesday, a nothing night. For Leo, it was the tail end of a double shift. His last delivery was to the Vance Tower, a building so sleek it looked like a shard of obsidian glass. The order was for Penthouse 3, a large pepperoni paid for with a platinum card. The tip pre-entered was a generous $20. For Leo, that $20 was Chloe's next inhaler copay. He was bone-tired. He just fixed a timing belt on a Toyota that fought him every step of the way. As he stood in the mirrored lobby, holding the pizza box that radiated a faint, greasy warmth, he misread his own scribbled note. The intercom panel gleamed. He meant to press PH3. His thumb, calloused and smudged with garage grease, pressed PH2. Upstairs in Penthouse 2, Ilara was in the midst of what her therapist's bills called a dissociative episode. She called it the static. The Aura system, sensitive to her biometrics, had dimmed the lights to a calm blue. A notification flashed on every screen: unexpected visitor AT primary entry. It had been 23 days since her last in-person visitor. The system, puzzled by the anomaly, pinged again. Downstairs, Leo got no answer from PH3. He tried again. Nothing. He sighed, the $20 tip slipping away. He was about to turn back to his car when the intercom for PH2 crackled to life. A voice, female, clear but edged with something hollow, asked, "Who is it?" Flustered, Leo leaned in. "Delivery for PH3. Giovanni's. They're not answering. You didn't order a pizza, did you?" A long silence. Leo was about to apologize and leave when the voice returned, softer. "No, but I haven't eaten." Another pause. "You can bring it up." The lock on the private elevator disengaged with a hushed chime. Leo stepped in, the doors sealing him in silent, brushed metal. He had no idea he'd just been granted access to one of the most private residences in the city. The elevator opened directly into her foyer. It wasn't a hallway, it was an atrium. The air was perfectly still, smelling of sandalwood and money, and there she was. Ilara Vance stood in the doorway of her living room, wrapped in a white silk robe. She was pale, her blonde hair swept back, her eyes holding a vacancy that no amount of wealth could fill. She looked at him, then at the pizza box, as if it were an artifact from a forgotten world. "Sorry for the confusion," Leo said, holding out the box. "One large pepperoni, that'll be $38.50. Ilara didn't move to take it. She just stared at his uniform, his tired eyes, the slight tremor in his hand from too much coffee. "You're a delivery driver." "Second job," Leo said with a weak, professional smile. "Gotta make it work, you know." "Make what work?" she asked, the question genuine, not cruel. Leo hesitated. The usual reply was the rent. But something in her detached curiosity, the sheer strangeness of the moment, broke his script. He tapped the photo clip to his delivery bag, a picture of Chloe, grinning with a gap-toothed smile, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. "My daughter, she's the whole project." Ilara's eyes flicked to the photo. Her expression didn't soften, but it changed. The vacancy was replaced by a sharp, almost painful focus. She took the pizza box, her movement slow. She then turned and walked back into the living room, leaving the door open. Leo stood there, uncertain. Protocol said leave the pizza and go. But the $20 tip for PH3 was gone. This was a mistake. He needed to get back to his car, to the next order, to the relentless clock. "Wait," her voice came from inside. Leo paused. Ilara reappeared, but not with cash. She held a single $100 bill between her fingers. "For your trouble." Leo's eyes widened. "Ma'am, the pizza is $38.50. I don't have change for that." "Keep it," she said, placing the bill in his hand. Her fingers were cool. "For the project." It was an act of absurd, disproportionate kindness. To her, it was less than the loose change in her sofa. To him, it was a lifeline. It was Chloe's inhaler and a good grocery run. He was speechless. "Thank you," he managed, his voice thick. You have no idea what this means." "Yes, I do," Ilara said quietly, her gaze drifting back to the city lights behind him. "That's the problem." Leo left, the $100 bill folded tightly in his fist. The elevator descended. He felt dizzy, as if he'd briefly visited another planet. Back in his car, he sat for a moment, the weight of the night and the bizarre encounter pressing on him. He drove home to a sleeping Chloe, the bill safely tucked away, a strange secret from the sky. Up in the penthouse, Ilara Vance sat on her immaculate white sofa, the open pizza box beside her. She didn't eat. She stared at the wall where a digital artwork usually shifted and flowed, but all she could see was the man's exhausted face. And the photo. The genuine, unfiltered love in that little girl's smile. It was a currency her billions couldn't mint. For the first time in years, the static in her mind cleared, replaced by a single deafening thought. "I have everything and I have nothing." The next morning, Leo was back under a car at the garage. His phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered, grease-stained hand to his ear. "Mr. Leo, this is Meredith from the Vance Innovations Executive Office." The voice was crisp, professional. "Ms. Vance has requested a meeting with you today at 3 p.m. Leo's blood ran cold. He thought of the $100. Was this a mistake? A trap? Had he somehow committed a crime by going to the wrong door? "What's this regarding?" he asked, his heart hammering. "I am not at liberty to say," Meredith replied. "But I can assure you it is a business proposal. A car will be sent for you. Please be ready." The line went dead. Leo slid out from under the car, the world tilting around him. A business proposal. From a billionaire heiress he met for 2 minutes over a pizza. It made no sense, unless it wasn't about the pizza at all. He looked at his phone, at the missed calls from the hospital billing department. He thought of Chloe. A proposal meant money, and money solved every problem he had. But at what cost? The car that arrived wasn't a town car. It was a matte black autonomous vehicle with Vance Innovations logos, a silent pod that felt less like transportation and more like abduction. Leo sat in the back, still in his mechanic's coveralls, feeling every bump in the road as a tremor of anxiety. The car delivered him not to the glittering Vance Tower lobby, but to a private underground bay beneath a sleek research campus in Tribeca. The doors opened to a sterile white corridor. A woman in a sharp blazer, Meredith, was waiting. Her smile was as warm as a spreadsheet. "Right this way, Mr. Leo. Ms. Vance is concluding a board call." He was led into a conference room that looked like it had been teleported from the future. A single slab of white oak formed the table. One entire wall was a live data visualization of global aura system usage, a mesmerizing, silent storm of light and numbers. Leo stood awkwardly, afraid to touch anything. The door slid open silently. Alara Vance entered and she was transformed. The silk robe was gone. She wore a tailored black jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. The vulnerability from the night before was buried under a glacier of cool control. But her eyes, when they met his, held a flicker of the same unsettling focus. "Thank you for coming," she said, not sitting. "I have a proposal." "Okay," Leo said, his voice echoing in the vast room. Vance Innovations is developing a new product line. Codename Hearth. It's a suite of hardware, a home energy manager, a security hub, an air quality monitor designed for the average family. Durable, simple, affordable. We are months from the first prototype review. Leo nodded slowly, not understanding what this had to do with him. "Our lead engineer on the physical hardware is a PhD from Stanford with 3 patents," Alara continued, packing slightly. "He designed a circuit board that can survive a drop from 10 feet. He cannot tell me why a real parent, rushing a sick kid to the hospital at 3 a.m., might accidentally pour orange juice into the charging port because the nightlight was too dim." She stopped and looked directly at him. "You can." Leo blinked. "I'm a mechanic. I fix cars. I don't know anything about tech hardware." "You know about chaos," Alara said flatly. "You know about real life. You know about things breaking when you can least afford it. I have a team of people who build for a perfect world. I need one person who understands the imperfect one." She gestured, and a holographic schematic of a sleek disc-shaped device appeared above the table. "This is the Hearth core. The focus groups love it. The engineers swear it's foolproof. I want you to try to break it. I want you to tell me every single way a tired, stressed, busy person could make it fail. And then I want you to help us fix those flaws." Leo stared at the shimmering image. The absurdity was overwhelming. "You brought me here to break a toy." "It is not a toy," Alara said, her voice sharpening. "It is a $1,200 piece of critical home infrastructure, and its failure could mean a frozen pipe bursting, a break-in going undetected, or a child having an asthma attack because the air filter shut down. My company's reputation, which is currently hanging by a thread, depends on this product not being a disaster. Your insight, Mr. Leo, is the cheapest insurance policy I can buy." She named a figure for the consulting fee. It was more money than Leo had made in the past 2 years combined. It would erase Chloe's medical debt in one stroke. The air left Leo's lungs. This was the proposal. A way out of his financial hell, handed to him by a stranger because of a misplaced pizza. It felt like a trap woven from gold thread. "Why me?" he asked, the question clawing its way out. "You could hire 100 psychologists, ergonomic experts." "Because you didn't lie," Alara interrupted, her cool facade cracking for a second. "When I asked what you were making work, you showed me a picture of your daughter. You didn't say the rent or the bills. You said asterisk or asterisk. In this building, no one ever shows me the real thing. They show me metrics, engagement graphs, profit projections. You have no idea how rare that is." Leo was silent, the weight of her loneliness pressing against the weight of his desperation. "The offer is this," Alara said, regaining her composure. "You work with the Hearth team 3 days a week. You report directly to me. You have full veto power on any design element you deem real-world stupid. We cover all of your daughter's medical expenses, current and ongoing, at the best pediatric facility in the city, and we pay you the consulting fee in full upon completion of the successful first prototype." It was a lifeline, a miracle, but Leo's life had taught him that miracles always had fine print. "What's the catch?" "The catch is Marcus Thorne," Alara said, her jaw tightening. "My chief operating officer. He was my father's right hand. He thinks Hearth is a sentimental, low-margin distraction from our core aura business. He thinks I am having a mental breakdown and that hearing you is the most glaring proof. He will try to sabotage you. He will try to humiliate you. And if he succeeds in making you quit, or in making this project fail, he will use it to convince the board that I am unfit to run my father's company." She leaned forward, her hands on the table. "So the catch, Mr. Leo, is that you have to be bulletproof. Can you do that for your daughter?" Leo looked from her intense gaze to the holographic device, then down at his own grease-stained hands. He thought of Chloe's laugh, of the constant, grinding fear in his stomach. He thought of a $100 bill that had felt like a fortune. He looked back at Alara. "When do I start?" "Now." The next 48 hours were a disorienting plunge into a different universe. Leo was given a security badge, an email address, and a desk in a corner of the Hearth lab, a pristine space of 3D printers and whiteboards covered in elegant equations. The team of 12 engineers, led by the brilliant and visibly irritated Dr. Aris Chen, regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and outright hostility. The first meeting was a disaster. Leo asked how the device's external casing was secured. Dr. Chen explained the magnetic locking mechanism with poetic elegance. Leo picked up the prototype, turned it over, and asked, "What if a kid tries to pry it open with a butter knife?" Silence, then polite laughter. "The polymer is rated to withstand." "Not the polymer," Leo said, holding it up. "The seam, right here. A butter knife or a car key could slip in and snap these little plastic clips inside. I see it all the time on car dashboards. Then the whole thing's loose and rattling." Dr. Chen's smile froze. That clip was a known, minor issue, scheduled to be addressed in version 2. Leo had found a critical flaw in under 3 minutes. The mood in the room shifted from amusement to wary respect, but the victory was short-lived. Marcus Thorne made his entrance on the second day. He was in his 50s, with silver hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He didn't address Leo directly. Instead, he held a meeting with the Hearth team with Leo in the room and proceeded to slash the project's budget by 30%, citing unproven market viability. Afterwards, Thorne cornered Leo by the coffee machine. "A delivery driver," he said, sipping his espresso. "How inventive. Tell me, do you think Alara sees you as a pet project, a living, breathing token of the common man?" Leo said nothing, focusing on stirring sugar into his coffee. "Let me be blunt," Thorne continued, his voice dropping. "This project is a sinking ship. Alara is emotionally compromised. She's chasing her father's ghost by trying to build something authentic. When it fails, and it will, she will be removed. And you," he let the word hang, You will be the embarrassing footnote, the pizza guy who crashed a billion-dollar company, but it doesn't have to be that way. He slid a plain white envelope across the counter. Inside is a cashier's check for twice what she's paying you, and a signed offer from a rival firm, Shaw Technologies, for a brand ambassador role. No work required. You walk away now, citing family reasons, and you and your daughter are set. You stay, and I will make sure you are personally blamed for every delay, every cost overrun. Choose wisely, Mr. Leo. Your daughter's future depends on it. Leo looked at the envelope. He thought of the check inside. It was freedom. It was safety. It was everything he'd been killing himself for. All he had to do was quit. He picked up the envelope. Thorne's smile widened. Leo tore it in half and then in half again, letting the pieces fall into the organic waste bin. My daughter's future, Leo said, his voice low and steady, isn't for sale by you. And for the record, I deliver pizzas. I don't drive deliveries. There's a difference. He walked away, leaving Thorne staring, his smile now a rigid line. When Leo told Alara about the encounter that afternoon in her office, she didn't look surprised. She looked grimly satisfied. He showed you the price, and you told him no. Good. It's not good, Leo said, frustration boiling over. He's cutting your budget, he's poisoning your team. Why don't you just fire him? Because he owns 15% of the company and he has the support of 40% of the board, Alara said, staring out at the city. My father trusted him. I am contained. For now. The only way to break his influence is to make Hearth a monumental, undeniable success, which is why I need you to break that prototype faster. The pressure forged an uneasy alliance. Alara started visiting the lab daily, not as the CEO, but as a participant. She'd roll up her sleeves and hold a circuit board while Leo explained why its mounting points were stress fractures waiting to happen. He saw her mind work, fast, analytical, making connections between his practical warnings and engineering principles he couldn't name. One evening late, they were the only two left in the lab. Leo was trying to explain why the device's emergency button was too small. When there's a real emergency, a fire, an intruder, people panic. Their fingers fumble. This needs to be big, red, and you should have to smash it, not press it. Alara was nodding, making a note on her tablet. Like a fire alarm, obvious when you say it. She looked up at him. How do you know all this? Instinct. Leo laughed, a tired, rough sound. No, because when my wife was sick at the end, we had a medical alert pendant. Beautiful, sleek thing. One night she needed help. She was in pain, her hands were shaking, she couldn't find the damn button. It was too small, too flush with the casing. I found her on the floor. She said she'd been pressing it for 10 minutes. The air in the room changed. Alara put her tablet down. I'm sorry. It's why I notice these things, Leo said, his throat tight. Because when it fails, it's not a data point. It's a person on the floor. Alara was silent for a long moment. That's what I've been missing, she said quietly, almost to herself. The cost of failure isn't in lost revenue, it's on the floor. In that shared silence, the billionaire and the mechanic were just two people who understood loss. The next morning, Dr. Chen came to Leo with a modified casing design, featuring a large, recessed, red emergency button that required significant pressure to activate. Per your suggestion, Chen said, without a trace of his earlier condescension. Progress was being made, but Marcus Thorne was not idle. A week later, Leo arrived at the lab to find a workbench covered in leaked documents, printed emails, confidential memos. They were all doctored to make it appear that Alara was funneling Hearth project funds into a private account, and that Leo was a paid accomplice, his consulting fee massively inflated. It was a clumsy, obvious plan, but it was also a message. Thorne could fabricate evidence. He could make a scandal. Leo immediately called Alara and security. The documents were confiscated, but the damage was done. The lab felt infected. Paranoia set in. That's when Leo found the photograph. He was looking for a specific torque screwdriver in a rarely used drawer in the lab's storage closet. Beneath a pile of old cables, his fingers brushed against a framed picture. He pulled it out. It was a black and white photo of a young man with intense eyes, standing in front of a cluttered workbench covered in disassembled radio equipment. He was smiling, holding a soldering iron like a wand. The man was unmistakably a younger Arthur Vance, Alara's father, but it was the backdrop that stunned Leo. The wall behind him was the same burnt orange corrugated metal as the garage where Leo worked. The sign, half visible, read V and Son Auto Repair. Arthur Vance hadn't started in a Silicon Valley garage. He'd started in a real one, in Queens. Leo took the photo to Alara's office. She was on a video call but cut it short when she saw his face. He placed the photo on her desk. "Where did you find this?" she whispered, her fingers tracing the glass. "In a lab drawer, is that?" "My father, age 19. That was his father's shop, my grandfather's." She looked up, her eyes bright. "He never talked about this. He had this whole mythos about starting in a garage with a computer. He meant this garage. He was a mechanic like you." The revelation hung in the air. Alara's obsession with roots, with building something real, wasn't just corporate strategy. It was a ghost reaching out. "This is why Thorn is so threatened," Leo realized aloud. "Hearth isn't just a product, it's your father's true legacy. The thing he forgot on his way to the top, and you're trying to remember it. Thorn doesn't want that memory coming back. It undermines everything he built with your father later, the slick, ruthless empire." Alara stared at the photo, then at Leo. In his grease-stained clothes, standing in her billion-dollar office, he was the living link to a past her father had erased. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with terrifying clarity. The intercom on her desk buzzed. Meredith's voice was strained. "Ms. Vance, Marcus Thorn is here with 3 board members. He says it's urgent. He's demanding access to the Hearth lab immediately. He says there's been a serious security breach involving the prototype." Alara and Leo exchanged a look. This was the move. Thorn wasn't waiting for the project to fail. He was going to orchestrate its public death right now. "He's going to plant something," Leo said. "Or claim you already did," Alara replied, standing up, her posture straightening into that of a general going to war. "Come on. The lab is your territory. Let's see what he's trying to break." The walk to the lab was a silent march. Alara's heels clicked a rapid, militant rhythm on the polished concrete. Leo matched her stride, his mind racing through every possible scenario of what Thorn had staged. They rounded the corner to see the lab doors already open. Marcus Thorn stood in the center of the room, flanked by 3 stone-faced board members. Dr. Chen and the engineering team were huddled off to the side, looking like hostages. On the main workbench, under a harsh spotlight, sat the Hearth prototype, and next to it, in a small, clear evidence bag, was a sleek, unfamiliar data drive. Thorn didn't wait. "Alara, thank you for joining us, and you brought your consultant." His eyes swept over Leo with disdain. "A grave situation has come to light. Our internal network security flagged a massive, unauthorized data transfer from this lab last night. Proprietary schematics, source code for the Aura integration layer, the crown jewels of this company. The transfer was initiated from this terminal." He pointed to Leo's assigned computer. One of the board members, a woman with severe gray hair, spoke. "The drive in that bag was found concealed inside the prototype's housing during a routine scan. It contains the stolen files. The metadata shows it was prepared yesterday afternoon." Leo's blood ran cold. It was a perfect frame. He never touched that data. He barely knew how to access it. "This is absurd," Alara said, her voice icy. "Leo doesn't have the clearance for those files." "He has your override codes, Alara," Thorn said smoothly. "You granted him full project access. A reckless decision, but convenient for him. We believe he's been working for a competitor, likely Shaw Technologies, from the start." The wrong delivery was likely a prearranged signal. He gained your trust and you handed him the keys. The logic was terrifyingly neat. It explained why she'd hired a stranger. It painted her as a dupe and him as a criminal. Leo saw the trap snap shut. He looked at Alara, but her face was unreadable, a mask of polished stone. "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Leo?" the gray-haired board member asked. Leo took a step forward, his heart hammering. "I didn't do this. I was set up. That drive was planted. Check the security footage." Thorne smiled, a thin, cruel line. "The camera for this lab angle has been offline for maintenance since Monday. A coincidence, I'm sure." Of course it was, the perfect crime. Leo felt a surge of panic, then a colder, sharper feeling, rage. He'd survived collection agencies, hospital bills, the sheer exhaustion of being poor. He wouldn't be taken down by a man in a $5,000 suit. "Then check something else," Leo said, his voice stronger than he felt. "Check the access logs for the server holding those files, not just the login, the query logs. What was searched for? When?" Dr. Chen stirred. "He's right. A simple data dump would show a broad file grab. A targeted theft would have specific search patterns. The logs would show that." Thorne's smile didn't falter, but his eyes flickered. "That will take time. The point is, the stolen data is on a drive inside his asterisk prototype." "Wait," Alara said suddenly. She walked to the bench, not looking at the drive but at the hearth unit itself. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands. "This is Revision D, the casing." She looked at Leo, a question in her eyes. He understood instantly. "The butter knife clips. Revision D has the reinforced seam. It was finalized and printed yesterday *morning*. I was here when the parts came off the printer. We assembled this unit together, Dr. Chen and I, at 3 p.m. He turned to the lead engineer. "You sealed it. You used the new adhesive that needs a 24-hour cure time, right?" Dr. Chen nodded vigorously. "Yes, the epoxy, it's still curing. If you open it now, you'll ruin the seal and the housing." Alara held up the unit. "So this casing was sealed shut at 3 p.m. yesterday. Marcus, you said the data transfer happened last night. How did a drive get inside a sealed unit before the data was stolen?" A beat of silence. Thorne had missed the technical detail. The timeline was impossible. One of the board members, a man with a beard, frowned. "That is a discrepancy." Thorne recovered quickly. "A technicality. Perhaps the drive was inserted earlier. The point remains." "The point is crumbling," Alara cut in, her mask finally cracking to reveal sharp fury. "You fabricated evidence. You tampered with a prototype to frame a man for a crime that didn't happen. This is gross misconduct. This is a violation of your fiduciary duty." She had him on the back foot, but Thorne was a veteran of corporate wars. He changed tactics. "Even if the method is flawed, the concern is valid," he boomed, addressing the board. "This man is a security risk. He is a distraction. This entire hearth project is a sentimental fantasy, bleeding money while our core business faces regulatory hell. Look at her," he pointed at Alara. "She's emotionally invested in this mechanic asterisk. It's clouding her judgment. The board must vote. Now, suspend the hearth project pending a full audit. And suspend Alara's operational authority until an independent review can determine her fitness to lead." It was a power play. He was using the chaos to force a vote. The board members exchanged glances. The gray-haired woman looked troubled. The man with the beard was nodding slowly. Thorne had prepared them for this. Alara stood rigid. She had proof of a flawed frame job, but not proof of Thorne's larger scheme. The board's fear was real. Their billionaire CEO was acting erratically, tied to a stranger. Leo saw it slipping away. Everything, Chloe's security, the medical debt, this fragile chance, was about to be voted into oblivion by people who thought his life was a sentimental fantasy. Then he remembered the photograph, the garage, the link Thorne was so desperate to sever. "You're right about one thing, Mr. Thorne," Leo said, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Everyone turned to him. "This project isn't about the future, it's about the past. Arthur Vance's past." He walked to Alara's side, facing the board. "Ms. Vance isn't building a gadget. She's trying to build something her father forgot how to make. Something honest. Something that doesn't spy on you, that just works when you need it. She's trying to get back to V and Son Auto Repair." Thorne paled. "What are you talking about?" "The garage in Queens," Leo said, "where Arthur Vance learned to fix real things before he learned to sell virtual ones. You knew that man, didn't you, Mr. Thorne? The mechanic. You helped him bury that man and build the empire. This project scares you because if it succeeds, it proves the mechanic was worth more than the mogul. It proves you helped him lose his soul for nothing." The room was utterly still. The board members were riveted. Thorne's face was a storm of suppressed rage and shock. Alara seized the moment. She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and projected the old photograph of her father in the garage onto the main lab screen. "This is my father. This is the heart of Hearth. Marcus has spent weeks sabotaging this project because he's terrified of this truth getting out. He doesn't want a product that works for the Leo Hayeses of the world. He wants products that exploit them. That's the Vance innovations he helped build. I am trying to build a different one." The gray-haired board member stared at the photo, then at Thorne. "Marcus, is this true?" Thorne sputtered. "This is irrelevant nostalgia. The financials are solid," Alara interrupted, throwing a new set of data to the screen. "Because while you were trying to frame my consultant, I had forensic accountants tracing your asterisk financials. You have a $9.2 million personal loan coming due in 90 days from a Cayman entity. An entity that, coincidentally, holds a major stake in Shaw Technologies. You need Vance stock to stay high to cover it. You think Hearth will spook the market. You're not trying to save the company, Marcus. You're trying to save your own leveraged hide." It was the kill shot. Thorne's carefully constructed narrative of concern shattered, revealing the venal core. The board members recoiled. The betrayal was now financial, personal. Thorne stared, his authority evaporating. He had no rebuttal. The game was up. "Security," Alara said, not taking her eyes off him. "Escort Mr. Thorne from the building. He is relieved of all duties, effective immediately. The board will receive a full dossier by end of day." As Thorne was led out, casting a final, venomous glance at Leo, the lab exhaled. The immediate threat was over. Alara had won. But in the quiet that followed, the gray-haired board member spoke again. "Alara, this was a spectacular defense, but it doesn't change the underlying issue. The market, the analysts, they have no sentiment for old photos. Hearth must be more than a tribute. It must be a flawless product, and it must launch on time. The prototype review for the tech press is in 72 hours. After this drama, it cannot stumble. The world will be watching, waiting for you to fail. The pressure is now greater than ever." She was right. Thorne was gone, but the stakes had just been catapulted into the stratosphere. Hearth was no longer a secret project. It was a public referendum on Alara Vance's leadership, her sanity, and her father's legacy. Alara nodded, looking suddenly exhausted. "I understand. We'll be ready." The board members filed out, leaving Alara, Leo, and the engineering team in the ravaged calm of the lab. The victory felt hollow, brittle. Dr. Chen approached, holding the sealed prototype. "We still have to finalize the battery stress tests and the drop test simulation, and after what just happened, we should probably scan this entire unit for any other surprises." Alara took the device from him. She looked at Leo. "You were brilliant in there." "I was desperate," Leo said honestly. "He was going to take everything from me." "He almost did," she said softly. Then she straightened. 72 hours. We have to be perfect. I'm not just asking you to break this thing anymore, Leo. I'm asking you to help me make it unbreakable." Leo looked at the device in her hand, then at the photo of her father still glowing on the screen. the ghost of a mechanic judging them. He thought of Chloe, sleeping safely in a bed paid for by this chaos. "Okay," he said, "then let's get to work." The next 3 days were a blur of sleepless intensity. The lab operated in a state of siege, fueled by caffeine and collective purpose. The Thorne affair had purged the team of doubt. They were now rebels with a cause. Leo's role evolved from critic to collaborator. He wasn't just pointing out problems. He was brainstorming solutions, using a car part analogy to suggest a better heat sink, recalling a child-proof lock from a medicine bottle to improve a safety switch. Alara was always there, often at 3 a.m., her silk blouse swapped for a Vance Innovations hoodie. She debated tolerances with engineers and fetched coffee. The billionaire heiress was deep in the trenches, and Leo saw the woman from the penthouse door re-emerge, not the vulnerable one, but the fiercely intelligent one who had been buried under grief and isolation. On the final night, with 12 hours to go, they hit a wall. The device passed every functional test but one, the extended drop test onto concrete from 6 feet. The housing didn't crack, but the impact would temporarily disable the internal diagnostics, a 5-second reboot that could be catastrophic during a real emergency. "We need a damping system," Dr. Chen said, frustrated. "But there's no physical space inside. We've minimized everything." Leo stared at the disassembled components spread across the table. He thought of car suspensions, of shock absorbers. He thought of the old, loose springs on Chloe's crib mattress that he'd had to tie down. "What if the damping system is asterisk the housing?" he said slowly. Everyone looked at him. He grabbed a rubber gasket from a spare parts bin. "We've got the hard outer shell. What if we create a secondary inner frame that holds the guts and connect it to the shell with something like this? Tiny, flexible dampers at every connection point. The shell takes the hit. The flexible connectors absorb the shock before it reaches the core." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. "A floating internal chassis, it's unorthodox. The cost is less than a failed launch," Alara finished, already running calculations on her tablet. "We have the 3D printers. We can prototype the connectors now. Leo, describe exactly what you're picturing." By dawn, they had a new prototype. The outer casing now contained a skeletal inner frame, suspended by 22 small, custom-molded silicone dampers. It looked the same from the outside. But when Dr. Chen performed the final drop test, the diagnostics light didn't even flicker. The device landed with a thud, and its status indicator glowed a steady, confident green. A cheer went up in the lab. They had done it. Alara walked over to Leo, who was leaning against a bench, running on fumes. "You did it," she said. Asterisk, "we did it," he corrected. She held his gaze for a long moment, the noise of the celebrating team fatting around them. "Thank you," she said, the words simple and heavy with meaning. "For not taking the check, for staying." Before he could answer, Meredith rushed in, her face ashen. "Alara, we have a problem, it's Chloe." Leo's heart stopped. What happened?" "She's fine, she's safe," Meredith said quickly. "She's at the pediatric center for a scheduled checkup, but the press found out. They know she's your daughter, Leo, and they know Vance Innovations is paying her medical bills. There are cameras outside the clinic right now. The narrative, it's not good." Alara grabbed a tablet, pulling up a news feed. The headline screamed, "VANCE Air BANKROLLS Mystery Man's Kid, Love Child or Corporate Puppet." The story spun a sordid tale. The reclusive heiress, the struggling single father, a lavish financial rescue. It painted Leo as a gold digger and Alara as an unstable benefactor. Thorne's poison, it seemed, had a delayed release into the media bloodstream. The triumph of the prototype evaporated. The review in a few hours wasn't just about a product anymore. It was about this scandal. The tech press would be armed with this gossip, ready to dissect not just the device, but the drama behind it. Alara's face hardened into that familiar, impenetrable mask. "Get the car. We're going to the clinic. We're going to face this head-on. Leo felt the ground disappear again. He had protected Chloe from everything, from debt, from fear, from lack. But he couldn't protect her from a camera lens and a cruel headline. His private struggle was about to become public spectacle. And as they headed for the door, the perfect, unbreakable prototype sitting silently on the table, Leo understood that the real test wasn't in a lab. It was about to begin, under the blinding, unforgiving lights of the world's judgment. The clinic was a fortress under siege. 3 news vans were double parked on the street, their satellite dishes raised like antennae searching for scandal. Ilara's car pulled up to the back service entrance. Inside, a kind nurse had taken Chloe to a private playroom, away from the windows. Leo saw his daughter through a glass partition, happily building a block tower, oblivious. The sight of her, safe and calm, steadied him. Ilara was on her phone, her voice low and furious. "I want a statement drafted. We confirm the medical coverage. We confirm Leo's consulting role, and we categorically deny any inappropriate relationship. Frame it as a standard corporate wellness benefit." Leo listened, and something in him rebelled. It was the same instinct that made him tear up Thorne's check. He put a hand on her arm, gently stopping her. "No." She looked up startled. "No." That's his language. Deny, deflect, control the narrative. It makes us look guilty of something. It turns Chloe into a benefit. He took a deep breath. "Let me talk to them." "Leo, they will eat you alive." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm not a CEO. I'm a dad, and I can tell the truth. It's the only thing we have that he didn't poison." Ilara studied his face, the exhaustion, the determination. Slowly, she put her phone away. "Okay," she said, "but we do it together." They walked out the front doors into the gauntlet. Microphones were thrust forward. Cameras clicked. A reporter shouted, "Ms. Vance, are you the child's secret guardian?" Ilara held up a hand for silence. She didn't speak. She looked at Leo and nodded. Leo stepped forward, the fluorescent lights of the clinic washing over him. He looked directly into the cameras, his heart a drum in his chest. "My name is Leo. That's my daughter, Chloe, inside. She has asthma. Her mother, my wife, died from cancer 2 years ago. The medical bills from that and from Chloe's care were going to bury us." His voice was rough but clear. "I work 2 jobs. I deliver pizzas. I met Ms. Vance because I delivered a pizza to the wrong door. She was kind to me on a bad night. Later, she offered me a job as a consultant because she's building a product for families, and she thought I knew something about real life that her engineers didn't. Part of that job includes healthcare. That's it. That's the story." He paused, letting the stark, unadorned facts hang in the air. "You can spin that into whatever sells ads. But in here," he pointed back to the clinic, "my daughter is getting the care she needs because of a job I'm proud to do. So you'll have to forgive me if I don't see a scandal. I see a miracle." The reporters were silent for a beat, disarmed by the raw honesty. Then one asked, "Ms. Vance, is this a publicity stunt for your new product?" Ilara stepped forward, her demeanor different. Not the icy CEO, but something more human. "The only stunt," she said, "was a man pressing the wrong intercom button. Leo is the best consultant I've ever hired because he isn't trying to sell you anything. He's trying to keep his daughter safe. That perspective is worth more than any degree on my wall." And yes, it inspired Hearth. Because at its core, that's what Hearth is. A product designed to keep your family safe, born from the inside of someone who knows what it means to fight for that every single day. She didn't deny the connection. She reframed it, from scandal to source code. The reporters started asking about the product, the launch. The energy shifted. An hour later, they were in the car heading to the launch event. The news feeds were already updating. From pizza delivery to product design, the human story behind Vance's Hearth. They had turned the scandal into a powerful, human prelude. The launch event was held in the same Tribeca campus atrium. The room was packed with tech journalists, influencers, and industry analysts. The air hummed with a new kind of anticipation. They weren't just here for a gadget, they were here for the story. Alara took the stage alone. She looked out at the crowd, no trace of the reclusive heiress. 2 months ago, she began, a man came to my door holding a pizza. I was having what my therapist calls a crisis of meaning. I had built systems that connected millions of homes, but I hadn't had a real conversation in my own in months. He showed me a picture of his daughter. And in that moment, I remembered what my father once told me. The most important technology isn't the one that connects you to the world. It's the one that protects the world you love. She unveiled Hearth. She demonstrated its features, the robust casing, the simple interface, the fail-safes. She didn't hide from the past. She showed the old photo of her father in the garage. She talked about building something honest. Then she brought Leo on stage. He stood there, uncomfortable in a new suit as she explained his role. Leo asked the questions no one else did. What if your hands are wet? What if the power goes out? What if your kid tries to take it apart with a spoon? Because of him, Hearth is not just smart. It's tough. It's for real life. She handed him the prototype. Leo, would you do the honors? The final test, a drop test from 6 feet onto the concrete stage floor. Leo held the device high. He let it go. It hit with a loud crack. The crowd gasped. Leo picked it up. The casing was scuffed but intact. He pressed the large, red emergency button. A clear, calm voice emanated from the device. Emergency alert activated, connecting to services. The room erupted in applause. The reviews scrolling on live blogs behind her were glowing. Vance's comeback. The anti-aura. Finally, tech that gets it. Backstage, Alara and Leo watched the reaction on a monitor. Dr. Chen was beaming, shaking hands with the team. It was a victory. Alara turned to Leo. We did it. You did it, he said. No, she said. She hesitated, then reached into her pocket. I have something for you beyond the consulting fee. She handed him a set of keys and a deed. It's the garage, V and Son Auto Repair. The building was in a trust. I bought out the trust. It's yours, to run, to own, a place where you can build a future on your own terms. Leo stared at the keys, his vision blurring. It was more than money. It was a foundation, a legacy he could actually touch. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me invest, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. As a silent partner, I hear the owner has a keen eye for real-world problems. He laughed, a sound of pure, unburdened relief. Deal. 6 months later, the atmosphere at Giovanni's Pizzeria was one of cheerful chaos. The smell of garlic and baking dough filled the air. At a large corner table, a party was in full swing. Leo sat at the head, now the owner of Hayes and Son Auto. The son, a hopeful placeholder for Chloe. His shop was thriving, with a contract to maintain the fleet of autonomous vehicles for Vance Innovations. The medical debt was gone. Chloe, sitting next to him wearing a paper crown, was coloring on a pizza box with crayons. The door chimed. Alara Vance walked in, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, her hair in a loose ponytail. She carried a gift-wrapped box. The other patrons, mechanics, drivers, friends, nodded respectfully. She was no longer a distant billionaire. She was Leo's friend. She handed the box to Chloe. For the master artist. Chloe tore it open. Inside was a state-of-the-art, kid-friendly tablet, preloaded with drawing apps and notably no data collection software. For your designs, Alara said, the world needs more peace tanks. She sat down next to Leo. The numbers are in, she said, lowering her voice. Hearth outsold its first quarter projections by 300%. The board wants to expand the line. They're calling it the human-centric division. Leo smiled. Sounds like you saved the company. We saved each other, she corrected softly. As the pizza arrived, Leo raised a glass of soda. To wrong turns, he said. To wrong turns, Alara echoed, clinking her glass with his. Later, as they walked out into the cool evening, Chloe skipping ahead, Alara stopped him. "There's one more thing," she said. She pulled a small, unmarked envelope from her bag. "I was going through the last of my father's personal effects. This was in a safety deposit box with my name on it. It's dated the week before he died." She handed it to Leo. Inside was a handwritten letter from Arthur Vance and a faded, grease-stained photograph. The photo was of Arthur as a young man, standing next to an older man in front of the same garage. They were both smiling, covered in oil. The older man had his arm around Arthur. Leo turned the photo over. On the back, in elegant cursive, it read, "Me and my dad, the real genius. Everything I built for him. Arthur." Alara's voice was thick. "He never showed me that. He never talked about his father. He was ashamed of the garage, I think, ashamed of where he came from." She looked at Leo. "You didn't just help me build a product, Leo. You helped me understand my father. You helped me bring him home." Leo looked from the photo of the two mechanics, generations apart, to Alara, and then to Chloe chasing a firefly under a street lamp. The circle was closed. The wrong button on an intercom had not just changed two lives, it had healed a broken legacy. In the end, the pizza was $38. The delivery was a mistake, but the connection it sparked was priceless. Alara Vance learned that wealth is a tool, not a destination. And Leo Hayes learned that the deepest poverty isn't in your bank account, but in thinking you have nothing to offer. They started as a mistake. They ended as a family. And the most advanced technology in the world couldn't engineer the thing they found, a second chance. So what's the real currency in a story like this? It wasn't the billions in a bank account or the $38 for a pizza. It was attention. In a world engineered for distraction, where our devices beg for our focus every second, two people, drowning in their own kinds of isolation, actually looked up. Leo looked up from his struggle to see a person behind the penthouse door, not just a tip. Alara looked up from her grief and guilt to see a father, not just a delivery. That moment of genuine attention cracked open two sealed worlds and allowed something real to grow in the space between. We build systems to connect, but often forget what connection requires. It requires seeing someone, truly seeing them in their mess and their beauty. Leo and Alara's story is a testament to the power of that simple, radical act. It proves that the most sophisticated algorithm cannot replicate the value of a single, unscripted moment of human recognition. It makes you wonder in your own life what you might be missing by not looking up. Who have you dismissed based on their uniform, their job title, their social status? What unexpected teacher or ally is waiting just outside your usual field of vision, hidden in plain sight? And perhaps more importantly, when have you felt unseen? When have you been the one in the penthouse, or the one in the uniform, silently hoping someone would notice the person behind the role? Their journey from a wrong button to a right family reminds us that our lives are not linear scripts. They are collections of chance encounters and choices, where a bit of kindness can reroute an entire destiny. Alara didn't just give Leo money, she gave his expertise value. Leo didn't just give Alara feedback, he gave her father back to her. They traded the one thing we're all starving for, understanding. That's the legacy that lasts. Not the product on the shelf, but the process of its creation, the collaboration, the respect, the shared purpose. Arthur Vance's ghost was finally laid to rest not in a boardroom, but in a garage, where his granddaughter now draws pictures and his daughter finally learned where she came from. So here's my question for you. What small, seemingly wrong turn in your own life ended up leading you to something profoundly right? Was it a missed bus, a wrong number, a chance conversation in a line? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story of second chances and human connection reminded you that hope is often delivered in plain cardboard boxes, please give this video a like. It truly helps the channel. Share it with a friend who needs to hear that their current struggle is not their final destination. And if you want more real stories that explore the invisible threads that connect us all, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one. Thanks for watching, and remember, the next time you're tempted to judge a book by its cover, you might just be closing the cover on your own best story.